everybody, it's Mrs. Slauson. Welcome. We're going to be doing section 1.2 in our algebra packet. So we are starting on page 9. Heads up, little disclaimer, I am at home, so if we hear dogs barking, I will be pausing the video. There's a really good chance we already went through some of this, so if we did get through some of this in class, I did tell you what portion of the video to start on, like what minute, second part. So anyway, we are going to be covering solving. So we did a little bit of solving in our first section, not much. That's what we would call a two-step equation, where to isolate x or get x alone, we want to move our addition subtraction over, and then we most likely want to divide. It takes 2 steps to isolate or to get x by itself. So in these problems, we're definitely going to be doing a little bit more than that. So here we go. So you can see our vocab at the top. We've got our unknown. That's our variable. We're going to be solving. We'll be working with equations. We'll be seeing terms. Terms are separated by addition and subtraction signs. We're going to be seeing like terms. And we definitely need to be talking more about inverse operations. So what do you need to get an equation ready to solve? So solving equations can get pretty messy. I always compare it to like painting a room. So before you just start painting and working backwards in the order of operations to isolate that x, we got to do a little prep work first. We got to get that room ready. So I have what I call my 3 steps of prep work. So the first thing is, if you see parentheses, you're going to want to distribute. So just a little review on this, the distributive property. As we progress through the year, you're going to hear me talk about the neighbors meeting the neighbors. Okay, so just know that this is the distributive property, and I'll use that phrase later on in the year. But the distributive property is just you multiplying. So 4 times x is 4x, 4 times 4 is 16, and since I have a plus sign, I just carry that through. Distribute. So here I get negative 2x, and then this subtraction, I like to do this thing where I add the opposite, okay? Because I work much better with addition than I do with subtraction. So I'm going to take negative 2x, which I have, bring down my plus sign, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So I'm going to get positive 10. Fractions. Don't be afraid of fractions, okay? It's a fourth of 8, so kind of up to the side, a fourth of 8. I would just multiply across when you multiply, so I get 8 over 4. And so you're really just dividing here, and you get 2. So I'll get 2x. And a fourth of 12. So again, you can just multiply across 12 and 4, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. This time I'll just bring down that subtraction sign. So you don't have to do that adding the opposite, so just showing you a couple of different options. And this negative is distributing through. So you can kind of think of it as, I talked about in another video, a negative, like on your graphing calculator, it sees it as the opposite. So when I distribute, I want to take the opposite of 5x, and I want to take the opposite of subtracting 4, so I will add 4. The other way you could look at it is think of it as a negative 1 in there, and then you could distribute just that negative 1. All right, we will have to work on combining like terms. So terms are these things. This is a term, this is a term, this is a term, this is a term. They're separated by addition subtraction signs. So what we want to do is combine the ones that are alike. So for instance, I would want to combine my 2x, and my subtracting 3x. So again, I think this is a great time to, let me make sure my pen's working. I like to add the opposite. And so 2x and negative 3x, I have more negatives when I'm adding. So when I add, I'll have negatives in my answer. You can do negative 1x, you could just do a negative x, and then I'll combine the non-x terms, just my integers here, 7 and 8, and I get 15. Or here, my like terms, I've got a 7x, and again, I like to go through first and just do that, add the opposite. Anytime I see subtraction, I add the opposite. Now this is a negative sign, this is not a subtraction sign, so I'm going to add my like terms. So again, when I put these two together, my answer is going to be negative because I got more negatives, and 7x and negative 11x is negative 4x. And then when I add negative 4 with negative 8, that's a lot of negatives, I get negative 12. Or you could do negative 4x minus 12. That's up to you. The other thing you're going to want to do in your prep work is you want to get the variable on one side of the equal sign. and there's usually a better one to move. So anyway, let's do a little practice. So our goal is to get all of our problems down to two-step equations. So these are two-step equations. So what I always like to do that I talked about in my last video is draw my wall, and my goal is to get x by itself. So again, when we solve, we work backwards in our order of operations, okay? So, but that's after we've done our prep work. So here, there is no prep work to do. I don't see any parentheses. I can't combine these like terms. There's nothing to combine with 10. And getting the variable on one side of the equal sign, that is already case. So when you get through your prep work, it's just order of operations backwards. So first I'm going to move the addition subtraction, so they add 18. I subtract 18 here, and then whatever I do to one side, I do to the other side because that equal sign crosses out. Feel free, I don't know what you're using at home, you can take a calculator. 10, take away -8, or take away 18 is -8. And so I did that. Now I'm going to move my multiplication division. And since this is -2 multiplying to x, I'm going to move it by division. Those cancel out because anything divided by itself is 1. Do the same to the other side. And -8 divided by -2, and negative divided by negative is a positive, and you get 4. It's great if you aren't using your calculator, but if you do need assistance sometimes, maybe try and then check it on your calculator. That's totally fine. All right, again, we got a calculator here, or sorry, calculator, a fraction. Don't be afraid of the fraction. So I'm going to draw my wall, and again, a two-step equation only usually requires these two steps. So the first thing I'm going to move is subtracting 20. I'm going to add 20. And -15, that's how I want to look at this, adding 20. When I put these two together, I have more positives than I do negative. So I get a +5. And now I want to get rid of the 1/2. The 1/2 is multiplying by the x. So when you divide by a half, like that, anything divided by itself is 1. Those cancel out because 1 times the x is just x. Let me draw my wall a little bit further. But hopefully you remember in middle school that when you divide by a fraction, you actually just multiply by the reciprocal. So what I'm going to do is multiply by the reciprocal, which is 2, or 2/1. And then I get 10 as my answer. If you are going to use your calculator for this step. So hold on, I got mine somewhere. So it doesn't matter what type of calculator you have for this example that I'm going to show you, but if you're going to take 5 and divide it by half, you need to put that half in parentheses like this so that your calculator knows it's a fraction. So it doesn't have to be a graphing calculator, any calculator you're going to use. And there you see the 10. All right, so our answer is 10. And I always like to circle my answers when I'm done. All right, let's keep moving through. So what we're going to start to work on now is not two-step equations. So we're going to go through our prep work. So first I always draw my wall. And the first thing I always look for in my prep work are parentheses. So I have parentheses like this. Okay? So remember, this is multiplying. So I'm going to get 2x from here. And when 2 meets 3, I'll have -6. Then I'm going to have +6 equals 70. So that's the first step, parentheses. Second step, I'm going to look on this side and combine anything that's alike. And there's nothing to combine over on this side of the wall because it's just one number or one term. So these are like terms. And again, if you don't like subtracting, you could always add the opposite like that. But taking away 6 and then adding 6, or -6 plus 6, those cancel out. So I'm just left with 2x. And then the third step of prep work, get all the variables on one side. They are on one side. And when we say one side, we mean the equal sign or the wall. Since this is multiplying, now I'm ready to isolate. All that prep work is done. And there is no addition subtraction to move over here. I just have to undo their multiplying. So I divide. And if you don't know what 70 divided by 2 is, well, we just cut it in half. That's what divided by 2 is. You could use your calculator. It's fine. And you get 35. All right, number 4, prep work. So the same prep work. First thing I'm going to look for is parentheses. So I'm going to distribute this. So when I look at this, again, I don't know if I should keep harping on that, but I really like to add the opposite. Okay, and the opposite of 3 is -3. So when I bring everything down, it's always just an addition sign. I never have to guess. So the 2 is just going to come down. There's that plus sign, and now I'll distribute. First step of prep work. So I get -3x, and when -3 goes to 4, I get -12. Second step of prep work is combine like terms. So these are alike because they are just integers. They have no variable with that term. So 2 and -12 is -10. And now getting the variable on one side, that third step of prep work doesn't happen here because there is just x on one side. So I'm ready to do my two-step equation. The addition subtraction, I'm going to move first this -10. To undo that, I'm going to add 10. Because -10 adding 10 gets rid of it, it becomes 0. So I get -3x on this side, and now 8 adding 10 is 18. And then the inverse operation, again, we're working backwards in the order of operations. We are going to undo that -3 by dividing. Again, as we like to say, those cancel out. And x, you have, I kind of lost my negative there. And that's a very common mistake as we go through. Maybe we drop the negative. 18 divided by -3, that's 6, but since it's a positive and negative dividing, it's -6. All right, let's just go a few more. So again, looking for that prep work. Let's switch to green. So in this problem, I don't have any parentheses, so I can skip that prep work step. Combining like terms. I could think of this as 5x subtracting 2x. Again, if you like this idea of add, and then I take the opposite of 9, -9, and add, I take the opposite of 2x, and I get -2x. You can do that. But when I combine these like terms, 5x, -2x, I get 3x, and now I have plus -9. And the third step of prep work, get the variable on one side. It already is, so here go my two-step equation. So I'm going to add, subtract. To get rid of -9, I'm going to add a positive 9. It's gone. 6 plus 9, I get 15. And now to get rid of my last step, I'll undo the multiplying of 3 times x. I'll divide by 3, and I get x is 5. Because 15 divided by 3 is 5, and those cancel out. All right, let's do this problem, and here we go. So first, I do see parentheses. So, if that kind of, I don't know how to say it, looks a little weird, you could always put a 1 in front of those parentheses. It's kind of there, but they never write it, so that's up to you. Let's try not to look at it that way. So I'm going to think the subtraction as a negative sign. So I'll be distributing that into here. So here's the 8x just coming along, and the opposite of 2x is going to be -2x, and the opposite of subtracting 3 is adding 3. After that step, I'm going to combine my like terms. Here we go. Those are alike, 8x and -2x. Oh, I forgot my wall. That's 6x. And bringing the variable to one side, I don't have to do that because it's all on one side. So working backwards, I will first undo their adding of 3. So I'll subtract 3. Let's cancel out again. We get 6x equals, let's see, that's 9. Now we're going to undo our multiplying and dividing. So this is multiplying. To undo that, we divide. And those cancel out. And let's talk about our answers. So 9/6, that's fine. You could simplify the fraction. I could divide this by 3 and this by 3. So that's 3/2. And maybe you realize that that is a decimal of 1.5. Or you went straight to your calculator and just did 9 divided by 6 and got that 1.5. So just think of all the different ways you can write the answer. Probably the best way to write it is in fraction form. I would say this is second best and that's last. All right, so how do you know if your solution is correct? Just always know you can go and check your answer. So for instance, if this were the PSAT test and it was multiple choice and you got 5 as one of your choices and you totally forgot how to solve this, what you could do is just start taking their choices that they have as answers and you plug it back in, and then you follow the order of operations, because when you're given X and you put it in, you're going to be evaluating, which means you are doing the order of operations. So if I put 5 in here and I follow my order of operations, I should get 6 as my answer. So let's just see if that's true. So I'll have 5 times 5, because that's where the x is going to go. We can leave it as it was. It was minus 9, and it was subtracting 2 times 5. So first thing in order of operations are parentheses. We don't have any. After that, we multiply from left to right. So I'll multiply this and multiply that. And then addition and subtraction. So basically what the order of operations does, it gets you so that you just have terms. And then when you have 25, take away 9, that's 16. Then you do 16, take away 10, and yes, you do get 6. So just one thing to keep in mind with the adding, subtracting as well, you go left to right. Don't do 9, take away 10, or 10, take away 9. You have to do this, and then you have to take it, subtract 10. All right, so just remember, you can always check your work. All right, let's take a quick look here. I'm going to pause the video, I think, at this point, and we're going to do how to solve an equation with a variable on both sides of the equal sign next.